Imagine New York City, 1860s, inside a wealthy brownstone. A young boy is gasping for air. His name is Theodore. To the doctors, he's a lost cause. Suffering from asthma so severe it felt like being strangled from the inside, his father would often hold him upright through the night just so he could breathe. They said he wouldn't live to see 20. But Teddy's father, a man of iron principles, looked at his frail son and delivered a mandate that changed history. Theodore, you have the mind, but you do not have the body. Without the body, the mind cannot go as far as it should. You must make your body. And that nearsighted, sickly boy looked back and whispered, I will make it. This wasn't a movie montage. It was years of agonizing discipline. Teddy turned his porch into a gym. While other kids played, he lifted weights, boxed, and hiked until his lungs screamed. He was forging a blade out of scrap metal. By the time he hit Harvard, the asthmatic boy was gone. In his place was a loud, muscular, and brilliant young man who could outbox the campus champion and out-argue his professors. Life seemed perfect. He found the love of his life, Alice Hathaway. He entered politics. But on February 14, 1884, Valentine's Day, his world imploded. Within hours, in the same house, his mother died of typhoid fever, and his wife died giving birth to their daughter. In his diary that night, Roosevelt drew a massive black cross and wrote one sentence, "The light has gone out of my life." Most men would have broken. Roosevelt didn't. He handed his newborn child to his sister, packed a bag, and bought a one-way ticket to the Badlands of North Dakota. He decided that if he couldn't heal his soul, he would exhaust his grief through brutal, physical labor. He arrived in the West wearing expensive glasses and tailored clothes. The local cowboys laughed at the four eyes from the city. They had no idea they were looking at the toughest man they'd ever meet. North Dakota was no place for a gentleman. It was a land of outlaws, extreme blizzards, and grizzly bears. When Roosevelt arrived, he was a joke. But that changed the night a drunk gunman in a saloon mocked his glasses and pointed two revolvers at him. Teddy didn't flinch. He stood up, punched the man so hard he knocked him unconscious, and went back to his meal. The message was clear. The Four Eyes was dangerous. His most legendary feat was the hunt for three outlaws who stole his boat. In the dead of winter, Roosevelt and two friends built a raft and chased them down a freezing river for 3 days. When he caught them, he didn't hang them. He stayed awake for 40 hours straight, reading Tolstoy to pass the time while holding them at gunpoint. He marched them 45 miles through the snow to the nearest jail. Why? Because Roosevelt believed in the law more than revenge. By 1898, the grief was buried, and a new fire was lit. When the Spanish-American War broke out, Roosevelt resigned from his comfortable government job. He wanted to fight. He gathered a ragtag group of Ivy League athletes, Texas Rangers, and Native American Scouts. They called them the Rough Riders. On a sweltering day in Cuba, Roosevelt did the unthinkable. Against orders, he mounted his horse, Texas, and led a suicidal charge up San Juan Hill. Bullets whistled past his ears, killing the men next to him, but Teddy never stopped. He was the first to reach the top. That single hour of bravery made him the most famous man in America. He didn't just win a battle, he won the hearts of a nation. He returned a hero. The political bosses in New York hated him. He was too honest, too loud, and impossible to control. To bury his career, they schemed to make him vice president, a dead-end job with no power. They thought they had silenced him, but then, an assassin's bullet killed President McKinley. Suddenly, the madman was in the White House. At age 42, Theodore Roosevelt became the youngest president in American history. The political establishment was terrified. One Republican boss famously screamed, "Don't any of you realize that that damned cowboy is now president of the United States?" They expected him to follow the rules. Instead, Teddy broke the board and started a new game. America was being strangled by massive monopolies. Standard Oil, the railroads, the robber barons. They owned the politicians, but they didn't own Roosevelt. He launched a crusade to break up these giants, earning the nickname the Trust Buster. He believed that no corporation, no matter how rich, was bigger than the people. He was the first president to take the side of the workers in a national strike, proving that the White House had a new boss. Roosevelt looked at the vast American wilderness and saw it disappearing. While others saw lumber and gold, he saw a soul. Using his executive power, he protected 230 million acres of public land. He created the National Forest Service and established 5 national parks. Every time you see a photo of the Grand Canyon or Yosemite, you are looking at Teddy's legacy. He saved the American outdoors for generations he would never meet. Speak softly and carry a big stick, this was his motto. When he wanted to build the Panama Canal to connect the 2 oceans, and Colombia hesitated, Roosevelt didn't wait for years of diplomacy. He supported a revolution, recognized a new country, and started digging. It was the greatest engineering feat of the century, a project that literally moved mountains and reshaped global trade forever. Despite his big stick policy, Roosevelt was a master diplomat. He mediated the end of the Russo-Japanese War, a feat that seemed impossible. For this, the man who loved war became the first American to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He was a walking contradiction, a soldier who built peace, and a hunter who saved the animals. After leaving the White House, Roosevelt couldn't stay quiet. In 1912, unhappy with his successor, he did something radical. He started his own political party. They called it the Bull Moose Party because Teddy said he felt as fit as a bull moose. It was during this chaotic campaign that the impossible happened. In Milwaukee, a saloonkeeper named John Schrank stepped out of the crowd and fired a Colt revolver at Roosevelt's chest at point-blank range. The bullet tore through a steel eyeglasses case and a 50-page thick manuscript of his speech before lodging in his ribs. Most men would collapse. Roosevelt didn't even fall. He coughed into his hand, saw no blood coming from his lungs, and concluded he wasn't dying yet. He ordered the crowd not to hurt his assassin, then walked onto the stage. He showed the audience his blood-stained shirt and the bullet-holed manuscript. "Friends," he said, "I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot. But it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." He spoke for 90 minutes with a bullet in his chest before finally allowing doctors to take him to the hospital. Losing the election didn't stop him. At age 55, seeking one last great adventure, he headed to Brazil to explore an unmapped, deadly river called the River of Doubt. It was a descent into hell. Fever, infection, and starvation decimated his team. Teddy himself became so ill with malaria and an infected leg that he begged his son, Kermit, to leave him behind to die so the rest could survive. But Roosevelt's iron will wouldn't let him quit. He clawed his way back from the brink of death, losing 50 pounds and nearly his life. When he finally emerged from the jungle, he had mapped a river 1,000 miles long. He returned to America a shadow of his former self, but with a spirit that remained unbroken. Theodore Roosevelt returned from the Amazon, but he was never the same. His body was broken, but his mind was still racing. When World War I broke out, the old lion roared one last time. He begged President Wilson to let him lead a volunteer division to France. He was nearly 60, blind in one eye, and crippled by tropical fever. The government said no. It was the only battle he ever lost, the fight to die on the battlefield. Though he couldn't go, his 4 sons did. In 1918, his youngest son, Quentin, was shot down and killed in a dogfight over France. This hit Teddy harder than any bullet or fever. The man who had spent his life praising the strenuous life and the glory of war finally felt its ultimate cost. His health began to fail rapidly. The light that had burned so bright for 6 decades was finally flickering. On January 6, 1919, Theodore Roosevelt died in his sleep at his home in Sagamore Hill. When the vice president heard the news, he sent the telegram that became famous. Death had to take Roosevelt sleeping, for if he had been awake, there would have been a fight. Even in death, TR was respected as a man who would have wrestled the Grim Reaper himself. Today, Roosevelt's face is carved into the granite of Mount Rushmore, alongside Lincoln, Washington, and Jefferson. But his real monument isn't made of stone. It's in every national park you visit. It's in the Panama Canal. It's in the very idea of the American dream, that no matter how weak you start, you can build yourself into a giant. Teddy Roosevelt lived more in one lifetime than 1,000 men live in theirs. He was a scholar, a soldier, a hunter, and a peacemaker. He taught us that the only man who never makes a mistake is the man who never does anything. So, what's stopping you from building your own body and your own legacy? If you enjoyed this journey through history, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories of the legends who built our world.